Hey guys, welcome to McCreety, where we talk about the entertainment business and just everything that's going on day to day. Just try to keep y'all updated and keep myself updated on everything in the world. But today we're talking about something a little bit different. So, you guys do know that I'm in college and me trying to keep up with my college and making sure that I actually graduate because, I'm trying to be a social worker and then I want to get my master's and I want to be a counselor. So just being able to get this degree is means a lot to me. And just so y'all know that it really does mean a lot to me, y'all are going to be participating in my final assignment. So today, this is my final assignment. We are recording, yes, but it's going to be a little bit different. So for today, my final assignment for my contemporary social problems class is I was able to pick any type of final assignment that I wanted, but it had to be based on a social problem in the world. And guys, the social problem I picked is homelessness. And the reason I picked homelessness is because I really want to start a nonprofit in homeless shelters in the future. So I thought, why not deep dive on homelessness and really figure out what's going on? Or like to just understand it on a better circumstance because I know that, some homeless people really do want to get out that struggle while others decide to stay in it. And it's really hard from my perspective, of course, because I've never been in their shoes to find out why. But just to learn that and to be able to receive information based on, because I also had to find three sources based on that. So the three sources that I was using had to find two scholar articles. So my first one is called Including People Who Experience Homelessness, a scoping review of the literature. It's by Trudy Norman and who's this? Victoria, Canada. It's kind of hard to pronounce that name. But then the other scholar journal that I used is Social Conditions of Becoming Homeless, Qualitative Analysis of Life Stories of Homeless People. And I might butcher this name, but it's Ms. Wandi A. Mabalwa. And it's also Asmit Johannes and Marcika Griffith who wrote this journal. And then I also went ahead and used one website, which is homelessness.org, where they just, they're basically a nonprofit who want to help people who are in that struggle, try to help them get out of it and not live that life anymore. But to sum it up, there are so many people that are homeless right now, guys, that you have no idea. I mean, you can see the people on the street, but there's so many people who are homeless that they're in the struggle, but you wouldn't recognize they're in the struggle. Like, for instance, also I've seen this one YouTuber. She has such a bright energy about her, and also she's young, so you would never expect it. But she is currently homeless. Her whole family is homeless. Mother and all her kids are homeless, and they live from hotel to hotel basically, but they've been staying in this specific hotel. And I just thought you never really expect homelessness in that type of light. You never expect homelessness to be where you can live from place to place, still gaining money in a sense, I'd say. Most people, when they think about homelessness, they say, oh, you're either living in a shelter, you can't make any money, or you're just on the streets and you're broke. Like, people think of homelessness in such a simple way when it can be so much more complex than we ever know. Like, so many people get homeless over like the stupidest thing. Like, one of the biggest factors I know recently was COVID. So many people went through COVID. So many people couldn't pay their bills. So many people lost their jobs, which retorted to them not being able to pay their bills. Like, I hope I use retorted white, by the way. But resorted, oh my gosh, not retorted. It resorted to them not being able to pay their bills, which was, I think, the craziest thing for people to get thrown out, because You're throwing them out, first off, in the pandemic where they shouldn't even be going outside. Second off, it's like they don't have their jobs. And if they don't got their jobs, how they going to pay their bills? They don't got no money. So it's like, so many things. So, like, recorded in 2020, there are 55.7 million people over 65 years old. Homeless, y'all. Homeless, especially over 65, is crazy. But think about it. Like, you don't really see young people on the streets. You see mostly older folks. You see older people who really understand what a struggle is, per se. They're the ones who are mostly homeless. But it's also they adapt that homeless life so much that they would rather stay out on the streets. Like, I have people who I work with now as a pharmacy technician where they are homeless and they prefer to be on these streets. Like, they don't want to receive the help to get housing. They'd rather be out there, which I kind of understand because after a long time, like, you get so used to being out there where it's like, this is life. I won't get anything better than that, which becomes a mental barrier. And once that mental barrier becomes something so thick and it clouds your mind and your judgment becomes something that can't be fixed, it's like there's nothing I can really do anymore. Your judgment is put right on that mindset. And your mindset is your willpower. And that willpower drove them to be able to live in these circumstances, especially in Ohio. Okay? Ohio was cold, y'all. Ohio, man, I walk outside with a Cartwright hoodie, and them is thick. Them work hoodies, they thick. Cartwright hoodie plus a coat, and I'm still freezing cold. So they've adapted, they've lived this struggle, and they're gonna continue to live it because it's a mindset for them. Which I know kind of is controversy, homelessness being a mindset, because also, you know, poverty lines have been such a blur these days because recorded in 2020 as well, going back to my facts, 5 million people are living below the poverty line and 2.6 million people were classified as near poor. Where I think it's crazy because since the median income was recorded as $26,000 a year, that's just crazy based on the inflation that's going on in this country. And also, the price of rent has gone up a lot. Okay. And people also, they can't afford mortgages with what we get paid hourly nowadays. And, some people say it is important to get a degree, but it's like, and this is coming out of the mouth of someone who's getting a degree. I don't say it's important to get a degree unless you know what you want to strive for, or if it's a career that needs a degree. Not all careers need degrees. So to keep on putting yourself through, I know so many people who tried to go to college but dropped out because it's not their dream. They don't have a career that's a dream that needs them to have a degree. Like me, I want to become a counselor or a therapist. So I need a degree. But I also want to learn about people. I want to help people. I want to learn the mindset you can get into and how to help people not backtrack that mindset, but evolve that mindset into a healthier outcome. There's so many things a degree can get you, but I think same thing as homelessness. Those people get into that mindset where it's like, this is my life. This is my forever. So they'd rather stick it out, work through it, and then keep going instead of evolving from that because you get that mindset, this is forever. And I'm like, you know, sadly, I can't change that, you know? But, like I said beforehand, I do want to start a nonprofit. So I'm going to start that. Y'all probably going to see something about that soon, okay? But let's get back to the facts, okay? So talking about homelessness again. Like another big factor I think is gender. And from what my facts say, women generally have a lower income than men. And black and Hispanics, older adults, face higher poverty rates than white counterparts, which, woof, like that's a whole section topic of its own. Like we can talk about that all day, but I think the biggest part of it is, and some people say racism, but I just think it's generational. You know, we feed off what was handed to us, and sadly, what was handed to us was low income. And white people, they get low income as well. It's not like anybody can run away from it. But I think when low income families, it becomes generational and they don't know how to overcome it, that's the problem. Because some people say you beat the system. It's not about beating the system, it's about evolving with the system. And hate to say it, coming from a black person's mouth, black and Hispanics still haven't learned how to evolve and beat the system, whereas our white counterparts have. They learned to beat and evolve the system in ways that benefit them, where blacks are still kind of in this hindrance moment where some do learn it. They learn about investing, they learn how to get out of that struggle mindset in a sense, while others stay in that struggle mindset and think they have to fight to survive every now and then, every single day, when that's not completely true. But we're not going to get on that. We're going to stay on homelessness, okay? But y'all know that the people who are mostly homeless are elders, like people who are above 65, like I said. There are younger people, of course, who are outside homeless, but younger people kind of have, I'd say, more of a token to get out. I only say this just because now how our lives are evolving and money making things are evolving, I think younger people have more access onto how they can achieve income, whereas older people who don't accept change as fast get stuck in that mindset, in that place, like I said before. Younger people, they could say, oh, I'm just going to do DoorDash. They get into homelessness and they live in their car. Okay, I'm doing DoorDash. They don't want to go back to an abusive situation or something at home, and they just want to stay, truck it out, and deal with it themselves. DoorDash is one way that I've heard so many people get out of homelessness, or at least break that barrier to where they could get a place where they was doing Uber every day, doing DoorDash every day, Instacart, doing something that requires what they have instead of trying to get something that they can achieve. Like, getting a job. Getting a job requires an address, and then you have to do this. And you have to do so much to have a job. Where, I mean, it's the same for DoorDash, but it's also different because, DoorDash is easier. All you have to have is like a license and a car. But another thing that homelessness, let's say, according to my notes, as I should say, says these are the three key themes of fostering. This is from my second article, but this is my first article, by the way. The three key themes of fostering social inclusion. So it says that is one of the main reasons of homelessness, is roots of social exclusion, is acknowledging the structural factors that contribute to homelessness, such as poverty, discrimination, and lack of affordable housing. Number two is towards social inclusion, which is exploring theoretical perspectives and principles that guide inclusionary particles practices such as participatory research and empowerment approaches. And then number three is creating inclusion, highlighting strategies to support inclusion, including providing material support, valuing lived experiences, and promoting meaningful participation in decision-making processes. Now this, when I was looking at this and researching this, trying to find a good article, these kind of stood out to me only because they tried to point out some ways or some mental aspects, scientific aspects, however you want to call it, on what people are affected by in homelessness or how they are affected by it. So, like the three key themes, it's like, okay, we're going to try to break this down for you, make sure that it makes sense. But it's trying to say also that these tie together. Homelessness and these three things tie together. So it's like, yes, there can be one without the other, but in most factors, it's always happening together. And I thought that was so, I won't say powerful, but it was so enlightening because, you always think homelessness is just, oh, they ain't got no money. Oh, I'm going past somebody, they ain't got no money. So it's like, let's not say always they ain't got no money. It's like there's so many factors on to say why somebody got put in that position. Some people say they got put in that position by somebody else. That's another factor. So many people go through different stuff. And that's basically what this is saying as well. I'm pretty sure it's like people go through different things that aren't taken account of. But then also, when we try to build these walls to get them out of this, the walls aren't inclusive for everybody to the point to where we can actually get them off of these streets because there aren't affordable housing. That's just one of the bottom lines is that there aren't affordable housing options for people or even like for instance me, the state says I make too much money from my job. I'm like, how I make too much money when I can barely afford to live on my own? I think like it's just crazy to me. Like the state just says I make too much money to get any government benefits. And they said the same thing to my grandmother like a decade ago when I first started living with her. If she wanted to get food stamps, like stamp assistance, they said she made too much money while she was taking care of 4 kids on her own, basically. So it's like, what's going on? And that is something that really needs to be improved because the poverty line is getting lower and lower. What used to be middle class is poverty. So it's like for these lines to go lower, the price gaps to get bigger and bigger between median income and poverty income, but the state lines are not changing. That's a big problem. The state, they're not changing, or even federally, they're not changing what our median income is. They change that, but they don't change what we should be making to be able to have these government programs. And you start the government programs to help people, but the principles aren't changing. We need to start doing that because that's also what's putting people out on these streets. You say they make too much money when in fact, in real life, they're at poverty. But statistically, they're above poverty. Like that just doesn't make any sense, And they'll say, "Oh, it's just how you spend your money," but it's like it also depends on what city you live in. Like I gotta shout out my favorite one of my favorite podcasters slash YouTubers, the Financial Audit. They do financial audits where basically they sit down with people and he breaks down their finances and tries to help them get better so that they don't have to experience homelessness, or even he has people on his podcast who are experiencing homelessness currently, and to hear those stories, but then also to break down people's spending. And some people do have it bad where they just spend like a wild man. They don't watch their spending, and that puts them into that bad predicament. But in lots of instances, that's not the case. And we need to focus on that, especially as a nation or even in the world. Homelessness is all around the world. But I think in the United States, it needs to start being addressed. We have homeless shelters, but they don't keep homeless people. Like you keep them and then you get rid of them and then you bring in a new batch and it just becomes an endless cycle, which it doesn't make sense to me. But I guess it does make sense. They want to get beds out for more people who's been outside, but it's like I just wish there was a system to where we get them in and then we rehabilitate them if that's what they like, get them back into society, get them jobs, get them housing, turn this into something that's feasible as a homeless shelter instead of just bringing them in for 3 days and putting them back outside, because that breaks people's trust, that breaks people's morale, that turns them into those mindsets of where they think that's going to be their life forever, and that's not. We shouldn't put that on people. Why should we keep them with that mindset? Let this mindset evolve, grow into something where they know they can make income and they can do better. Now, my last article that I did choose was where they basically interviewed people who were homeless, or they spoke with people who were homeless. And to sum it up in this one, it shows that on homelessness, the reason they became homeless is that they lost personal resources to cope with life challenges. And I just think that's like crazy if you think about it, because one of the main reasons why these people say they got homeless is that there are things in their life that they use to cope with these problems that they were facing in life that always helped them get over that hurdle and still get by. They lost it. And then it put them into just, it put them into a predicament where they feel like they can't get out, which is the sad part. Like, and then they lose friendships, they lose families, like they lose their family and friends over this. And then it just turns into like a whole bunch. And then also, like, it can be also some background stuff, like it could be in their past about childhood, like they could have been abused, they could have been neglected, like it could have been family dysfunction, a broken up family where the parents were separated and you had to house jump and you always felt displaced. So once you got displaced from yourself, you got displaced and you outside, that felt real, that felt normal. Like, there's so many things, like, but the main factors that this third article said is poverty, low income, unemployment, lack of education, and social isolation. And when I first was thinking, I'm like, social isolation, like, oh my God. But if you really do think about it, the people, when you, at least when I've communicated with someone who's homeless, they've always been the type of people where they don't expect anything. They've always been the type of people where it's like, I'm not going to receive anything anyways, but I have to ask kind of vibe. And whenever I have cash, I give. You know, I've always been that type of person. If I have cash on me and a homeless person asks me, do I have any change or cash? I give, because I don't know your predicament. If you are into drugs, that's your life. You know, some people have told me, before, like, that person could have been a drug addict. Why would you give them money? They got to get over that hurdle. I can't force anybody to get over a hurdle that they're struggling with, especially with my faith wise. I believe in God, but I also believe my path is not to be a coach. I'm not here to coach people to get over their life struggles faster than what they're destined to get over them. Some people are never destined to get over them until they get to them gates. And we have to respect that. While others, they will get to that point to where they learn they have to break their cycle. In social isolation, when I was reading that, I was like, that's such a big thing. And then also lack of education. You would think in this modern day society, people would have proper education, but no, there are a lot of people who drop out. There are a lot of people who don't believe in themselves. And there are also the environment of homes where they grew up in. You could be told you ain't shit every single day. A person will believe that, and then they'll drop up and become and feel like shit, which is so sad, but it's reality. It happens, which feeds into that social isolation, family dysfunction, neglect. Like, when I was really thinking about homelessness, that's one reason why I really do want to become a counselor and a social worker, because to be able to feed people a new emotion and how to work through these emotions as well, I think is very powerful. It's very powerful, it's very enlightening to me, but also to someone who needs it. And I don't want to make someone think that, like, oh, you just a know it all. It's not about being a know it all. It's like, I really do care about trying to find a solution for homelessness because it's not right for people to be on the street. It's not right for people to just accept that, especially where I work at. I see homelessness so much. So much. And the government don't, I'm not going to say the government doesn't care. I'm going to say the government does not want to find a solution at this moment because they don't even want to help people who are in the real poverty line. Like, they don't even want to help those people. So how are they going to help homeless people? Like, let me leave that for questions for y'all because if I keep talking about it, it's going to become forever. But sorry, another part of my final assessment or assignment, however you want to say it, is picking a sociological perspective. And the sociological perspective I picked is functionalism. And just to break down functionalism for those who don't know, functionalism is a sociological perspective that views society as a complex system of interconnected parts, each with a specific function to maintain social stability. This perspective can be applied to understand the issue of homelessness in the context of all what I just said. Okay? But when you look at functionalists and like how I just explained it with this definition, it is so many interconnected parts that play a big role in the idea and the reality of homelessness. The idea of homelessness is just crazy. It's something that I don't know if I'll ever experience per se because I think I'll always have somebody who can help me get back up and pick me up or at least somewhere to stay. So I don't think I'll ever experience that personally. But I'm going to say the reality is a complex system and there's lots of interconnected parts that someone goes through that feeds into that system of where they get in that loop. Same as the homeless shelters. They get in that loop and they hold that mindset that they're never leaving that situation, which is troubling because then when you gotta help them, it just becomes something crazy. But yeah. Oh yeah, guys. It's also another thing that I do have to talk about is a policy that I wanna or that I think that could help with homelessness. Um, a policy that I think would help with homelessness is something that can, like, I know we have jobs and family services, but I'm thinking that we could have another system that's dedicated to actually people who are homeless. So there's a jobs and family services for people who are just struggling to find work. But then there are also ones who are struggling with people who are currently on the street. You know, people who are currently in that struggle outside and have nowhere to go. If we have something like that, and then also people who can get shuffled into those jobs without addresses or get shuffled into those jobs without having to have experience. And it doesn't have to be high income jobs. It has to be an income to where they can afford the affordable housing. Like if that type of policy like that be made, I know homelessness will be the numbers will get lower. That's all I gotta say on that though. But I'm gonna go ahead and end this. I really do hope you guys enjoyed listening to my little rant, and I hope you guys do also share your point of view on what you thought of what I was saying if you did make it this far. Because this was, of course, an assessment. You know, this was an assignment. But I know people are going to hate me saying assessment. Don't bring it up. But I know this was an assignment, but I also do want to hear people's viewpoints on this because this is a subject that I've always looked into, and I know that I want to get into the field of helping people who are homeless. So I want to know your guys' point of view, and also leave in the comments what grades you think I'm gonna get. But that's McCready. Thank you so much for listening, and then go ahead and drop those comments and let me know what's happening. Peace out. Love you every day.